And I recognize the gentlelady from Virginia, Ms. Elfreth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very proud to represent Maryland, but always proud to follow my colleague from Virginia. It's okay. We have very similar interests. Very similar interests. Thank you. Thank you to our gentleman for being here. I'm going to take us back a couple years to 2019 when three U.S. Navy sailors were killed in a terrorist attack at Naval Station Pensacola by a Saudi trainee. One of them, Navy officer Joshua Watson, just 23, was a recent graduate of the United States Naval Academy that I am proud to represent. Two others, Airman Mohammed Haitham, just 19 from Florida, Airman apprentice Cameron Walters, 21 of Georgia, were killed in the attack. The families...
Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of those moments that should make every American stop scrolling and actually pay attention. Because what you're about to watch isn't just another hearing. It's not just political theater. This is about power. This is about truth. And most importantly, this is about whether the American people are getting straight answers. And when you watch this closely, you'll start to notice something that doesn't quite add up. So here we are, another congressional hearing. Officials sitting in front of lawmakers, under oath, being asked questions that directly impact the safety, security, and future of this country. Now, on paper, this is how the system is supposed to work. Lawmakers ask the tough questions. Officials provide clear answers. The American people get transparency. But as this video unfolds, you start to see that things don't always go that way. Watch how the questioning begins. It starts simple, direct, clear, straightforward. But then the answers come in, and instead of clarity, you get carefully worded responses.
And I recognize the gentlelady from Virginia, Ms. Elfreth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very proud to represent Maryland, but always proud to follow my colleague from Virginia. It's okay. We have very similar interests. Very similar interests. Thank you. Thank you to our gentleman for being here. I'm going to take us back a couple years to 2019 when three U.S. Navy sailors were killed in a terrorist attack at Naval Station Pensacola by a Saudi trainee. One of them, Navy officer Joshua Watson, just 23, was a recent graduate of the United States Naval Academy that I am proud to represent. Two others, Airman Mohammed Haitham, just 19 from Florida, Airman apprentice Cameron Walters, 21 of Georgia, were killed in the attack. The families of the victims deserve answers and some type of resolution for the fact that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia did not properly vet the trainee that committed these horrible acts. Can you, anybody, give me kind of a status check on the litigation and whether the families have received compensation for their loss?
I'm happy to get you a status check after I go back to the office, but I will say vetting is something that we're particularly focused on, particularly as it applies to military installations. This is something that we looked at specifically when we started creating the national defense areas on the southwest border, and now we start to look at protocols that we can apply throughout all U.S. federal installations as well as military installations.
Could I get that response maybe in a week's time? Is that appropriate?
I'm
time?
happy to respond. Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to Cuba. Yesterday afternoon, the president told reporters, "I do believe I'll have the honor of taking Cuba." When he was asked what he meant by this, he said, "Taking Cuba in some form, whether I free it, take it. I think I can do anything I want with it. If you want to know the truth, they're a very weakened nation right now." General Donovan's prepared statements do not mention Cuba, nor does the National Defense Strategy identify Cuba as a threat. Can anybody identify for me or explain or define what take it could mean? And then further, what imminent threat the government of Cuba is placing on Americans right now?
As I mentioned before, Congresswoman, Cuba has been involved in pretty much every threat that the United States has faced from the Western Hemisphere, whether it's intelligence, whether it's aligning with criminal groups, whether it's working with external state actors. The Cuban government has been intricately involved in a lot of these threats, and fundamentally, we're involved inside Venezuela. And
imminent threat from the Cuban government to the American people right now?
Through networks, working with adversaries of the United States.
So as you probably know, the prolonged blockade has caused, as of yesterday, Cuba's power grid to go down. Can you please help me understand, are we preparing to go and invade Cuba?
So the shortages that are happening in Cuba on both electricity and power have to do with the fact that Venezuela was subsidizing oil shipments to Cuba at pretty much a fraction of the cost in exchange for security personnel that was identified when we conducted Operation Absolute Resolve.
Are we preparing to invade Cuba?
Ma'am, I'm not familiar with any plans on Cuba. What I'm saying is that fundamentally, Cuba has provided a significant threat to the United States hemispheric security for decades and close to half a century.
Okay, I'm going to keep going with this kind of theme of a disconnect between the president's rhetoric and I think what we're actually seeing imminent threats on the ground. I'm going to take us back to Greenland, which feels like a decade ago, but was only a short few months ago. There is no doubt from anybody on this committee that China and Russia pose significant threats to Arctic security, particularly because they've outpaced us on icebreakers and are far more aggressive. But we can all agree, I hope, that it is too broad of a terrain to monitor and protect on our own. That's why we have allies. That's why we have particularly our NATO allies. Yet, again, the president's rhetoric, I'll just quote him, "We are going to do something about Greenland. If we don't do it the easy way, we'll do it the hard way." General Guillot, I imagine that makes your job particularly difficult. I was heartened to hear in your opening statements respect for our allies, our NATO allies, how important Denmark and Greenland are to Arctic security. I guess my fundamental question here is, what do you want to do, or what does the president want to do with Greenland that the 1951 treaty doesn't allow us to do?
Congresswoman, we are working with Denmark through the Department of State to expand some of the authorities that are in the 1951 treaty to give increased access to different bases across Greenland as we look at the increasing threat and the strategic importance of Greenland. But everything that we're doing through NORTHCOM is through Greenland and through Denmark.
So I'm hearing we could have achieved all of this diplomatically through our NATO alliance without threatening to take or to invade Greenland by force.
Well, I can speak to the mill-to-mill portion, and we have a very strong relationship with Denmark.
And I want to commend you for maintaining that relationship despite what some of the news or what the president may say. I think the mill-to-mill relationship is essential here, despite that rhetoric. With that, I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Gentlelady from the great state of Maryland yields back.
Long explanations that avoid the core question, and moments where it feels like the real answer is being danced around. And let's be honest here, that's where the frustration kicks in. Because when the stakes are high, when we're talking about national security, government decisions, or global threats, Americans don't want polished answers. They want honest ones. This country wasn't built on vague answers. It wasn't built on avoiding tough questions. It was built on accountability. It was built on the idea that those in power answer to the people. But what we're seeing more and more is a system where information feels controlled, transparency feels limited, and the truth feels filtered. And that's a problem, because once people start losing trust in what they're being told, everything else starts to fall apart. Let's really think about what's happening here. When a lawmaker asks a direct question in a hearing like this, it's not random. These are questions about decisions being made behind the scenes, risks that could impact millions of people, and actions that could shape the future of the country. So when those questions don't get clear answers, that creates uncertainty. And uncertainty leads to doubt. And doubt leads to something even bigger, a lack of confidence in leadership. Now I'm going to say something that a lot of people are thinking, but not everyone is saying out loud. If everything is under control, then why not just say it clearly? If the situation is being handled, then why not give a direct answer? Because when you see hesitation, when you hear answers that don't quite land, it makes people wonder what's really going on. And those questions are valid. There's always that one moment in hearings like this. You probably saw it, where the pressure builds, the questioning gets sharper, and the response still doesn't fully answer what was asked. That moment? That's the moment that sticks. Because it tells you more than any prepared statement ever could. And here's the truth. This isn't just about this one hearing. This is about a bigger pattern that many Americans are starting to notice. Lack of clear communication, lack of direct accountability, and a growing gap between leadership and the people. And whether you're left, right, or somewhere in the middle, that's something everyone should care about. So now I want to hear from you. Did those answers sound clear to you? Do you think we're being told the full truth? Or do you think there's more happening behind the scenes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe in transparency, accountability, and putting the people first, make sure you subscribe, because we're going to keep breaking these moments down and bringing you what others won't.